And again, remember, the term treason is a legal term that is within legislation. So you can't just you couldn't banter around the word treason and expect to get the type of judicial response that is just,
Yeah.
it's a very specific thing. So imagine if the commissioner of police thought that someone who may have a show like yourself, I won't identify you, but someone who may have a show like yourself or is exercising their right to free speech is treasonous. What this legislation says is that he can wiretap without a warrant, as opposed to having to go to a judge who then has the skill set and has the authority to review, in fact, whether or not what is happening is something treasonous. And that's why the judiciary is so important this week.
Yes.
In a legislation like this, the judiciary is the guardrail. That is the man standing at the gate to protect the rights of the citizens. That is the arm of government that we rely on within democratic societies to keep the administration in check and to ensure that the citizens' rights are protected. I want to go back, and I think we may have missed this as an introductory point.
What page are you on? What page?
I'm going to take you all the way back to the same page 9, but have your producer go to the top of page 9.
Page 9, yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It says, notwithstanding in this act shall be construed as being a derogation from section 11B and C of the Constitution. I just want to zero in on this 11B of the Constitution such that your viewers and your listeners understand the importance of what we are doing here by sounding our voices, by trying to educate the masses, educate the citizenry.
Yes, sir.
11B of our Constitution is the section of the Bill of Rights of our Constitution that grants to every citizen in Barbados the right, I say, to privacy. Privacy is a right that the Constitution gives to every citizen. This bill recognizes that right can be restricted. So that's this is the very start of the bill. So it's admitting basically that the right to privacy can be restricted. I want your viewers to be very clear. That in itself is not a problem. And I'll draw an example. One of the rights within the Constitution is the right to the freedom of movement, right? Mm-hmm. And if you take your minds back to early 2020, when the COVID pandemic came, you would have noticed that the Attorney General would have to consistently pass bills in Parliament in order to institute curfews. That bill, that legal instrument, basically removed or restricted the right of the freedom of movement. So that bill says between a certain time you had to be in the confines of your home, you could not move around the country freely. So I'm drawing that example so that your readers and your listeners understand that in the Constitution, there are rights that are given to the citizenry. But the government or the legislature, in their own understanding, can restrict those rights based on the national interest. Yes. So there's always a balancing act between the individual right of the citizen and the national interest. So during the COVID time, the national interest then would have been health and safety. It would have been because we had a pandemic. You wanted to reduce the incidences of sickness and death. So there was a clear national interest, which would have been the undergirding of a law that restricted the right to the freedom of movement. So then come to this legislation. What this legislation purports to do is to restrict the right of privacy based on the national interest. You see the comparison?
Yes.
The national interest in this incident is the prevention of crime. And any Barbadian who has not been living under a rock would understand that we are now in a season where crime has reached, I believe, all-time high in Barbados. We're not accustomed to this level of crime, and not just crime in pockets of the society that we dare not traverse. You're talking about crime at the gas stations, in barbershops, in the food court at Sheraton Center,
Yeah.
shooting down the streets. People are, you understand, on the basketball courts. So we are all fully aware of the situation of crime. So there is a national interest that we want to protect as well, and that is crime. Our challenge to the bill, however, is that when you institute a piece of legislation that seeks to restrict the right that is given in the Constitution, that piece of legislation must be so soberly crafted and must be so thoughtfully laid out to the extent that it does not leave any loopholes for abuse of power. Because when you give the power to the administration to restrict a right, there must be strict guardrails such that from administration to administration, the citizens do not have to worry that those rights are being abused. And this is what the opposition leader was emphasizing on the floor of parliament. We should not be in a society where we are worried about picking up our telephones and talking about our private matters. All of us as individuals have private matters that we only talk about with our husbands or our wives, private matters that we only talk about with our business partners, private matters that we only discuss with our children. Do you understand the extent to which privacy is something that we enjoy and we don't really think about? And therefore, you have a scenario where you have a piece of legislation that legalizes the ability for a functionary, legalizes the ability for the commissioner of police to take away your privacy. In the national interest, yes. So you will see on the show last night, we emphasize, we are not necessarily saying that the national interest and the prevention and the detection of crime is not something that should take place. The Attorney General on the floor of Parliament today was very correct in that we should be able to give the police the tools in order to fight crime and to even get ahead of crime. Totally agree. And if that is the case, then what the responsibility of the administration, where this is where we think the administration is falling down in their responsibility, derelict, quite frankly, is that you have to balance the national interest with the individual interest. And the way to do that is that when you craft a piece of legislation, you have to ensure that all of the guardrails are in place. And the guardrail in the first instance is your judiciary.
Judiciary, yes.
Must be the gatekeeper. And if you put in this legislation the opportunity for the Commissioner of Police or the Director General of the Anti-Corruption and Anti-Terrorism Agency, if you put in this legislation those two men, those two functionaries, to be able to carry out the interception of your communication without reporting to the scrutiny of the judiciary, that is where the gaping loophole is, and that is where the fear that the citizens should fear as it relates to their rights to privacy.
Yes.
And I think that your listeners need to really understand. I want to make one final point here on this. While I joined the show this afternoon, Brass Tacks with Mr. David Ellis, I joined that show this afternoon, and I had a caller came in, and I won't be able to quote him verbatim, but he made the comment that he thought that we were raising an alarm simply to score political points, I believe was the phrase he used. And I want to go back to his comment now to make this point. This is not about political expedience. This is about me. This is about you, Miss Weeks. This is about every single listener, their family. This is about a Barbadian way of life that we have become accustomed to. We are not in a police state. We are in a free democratic society. And raising the alarm has nothing to do with political points. It has to do with educating the masses, educating the citizens of Barbados when something is afoot that can have a real life implication on their lives and their well-being. It is not about partisan politics. There will be time for partisan politics, I promise you. There will be time for heavy criticism of this government, but I do not believe that time is now. This is about recognizing that there might be one government in today and there may be another government in tomorrow. Today, you may be the one doing the abuse, and tomorrow you may be the subject of the abuse. So this is about protecting every single citizen in Barbados. So I just wanted to make that point, because I find that what is happening in this very tribal and political environment is that persons are happy to reside back into their colors and into their echo chambers, and don't want to listen because I am not a B, or I'm not a D. I promise you, it affects every D, it affects every B, and every letter in between. This is about understanding about your fundamental rights your fundamental rights as a citizen of Barbados.
Yeah. Very well said. Very well said, sir. And this is we thought that this would be so important for us to see it, because people are going to keep, sharing this. Guys, remember, we keep sharing. Share it out to your WhatsApp groups while we can. Share it out, guys. To everybody. This is education. This is education. We know we're going to hit the streets. I will be able to tell you when that will be. I'm sure it's by next weekend. We need to get out there Saturday and Sunday, probably. One is going to be a march, the next roadside parliament. Either we're going to do the two on one day, or one on Saturday and one on Sunday, but we must. It's so important. We only have Mr. Thorne inside that, as you saw today. In Parliament, we do have the two senators. We cannot ask them to do all of that alone. It's not possible. The bill is going to get passed, folks. We need us. We need Mr. Greenidge on outside to educate. We need to use our platforms. Use your social media. Use whatever you have. Use WhatsApp while you can. Use anything, and use your churches. Anywhere that people gather, and you could educate them on this. Educate them on what this is all about. Continue, sir. I know there are other areas that you want to. Oh boy, we're okay. We have 29 minutes.
Certainly, I will be as quick as I can, and I want your listeners to remember one watchword. It is guardrails. Guardrails. There must be guardrails in place. We've dealt with the guardrail of the judiciary and how Section 5.2 bypassed that guardrail.
Yes.
The next guardrail for your producer is on page 31, and that will be Section 25 of the Act.
Page, what's the page again?
31.
Page 31. Yes, sir.
Yes. If you could scroll down just slightly to Section 25. Yes.
Folks, are you taking notes? Please make sure we're going to go this over on Sunday. We're going to stay on this, people. Yes, go ahead, sir.
So here you have, as it's headed up, the Independent Monitoring Commission. And the opposition leader this afternoon on the floor of Parliament, he spoke very eloquently, and he hammered home this area. So I just want to zero in on this as a second guardrail. As I said, there are a lot of other things within the Act. We can't deal with everything, but I think these are the major things, the major things that I think we need to walk away from your show tonight. Now, the Act provides for an independent monitoring commission. This independent monitoring commission, they come in now at the tail end of this process. So you have the Commissioner of Police and you have the Director General. They're at the forefront. So they are the law enforcement agencies. They suspect some kind of criminal activity. A, they could go and get a warrant, as they should. Or B, they could forget the warrant and go, and if there's national security, all those broad categories, go and do it, and then maybe come back and get a warrant. So there's that breakdown of the first guardrail, which is the judiciary, which we dealt with. At the tail end now of the process is this independent monitoring commission. How this works is that the legislation provides that this monitoring commission is in effect like an auditor that comes afterwards to examine what you have done, and they have the power, if they see in examining what you have done over the annual period, they have the power to go and investigate. the legislation provides that the Commissioner of Police must annually present a report to the Independent Commission